CT-PAT. You know, there are some who argue, is it really mandatory now?
We're going to talk today about the synergies between international trade compliance and global security with my guest, Rennie Alston. He is Chief Executive Officer of American River International. Rennie, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
This is an interesting topic, bringing these two things together. Now, in your opinion, is it possible to have a successful supply chain process in 2014 without the inclusion of global security management?
No, it's absolutely impossible to have a successful supply chain without incorporating the core principles of global security management. Around the globe, we've seen the rise, due to post 9/11 issues, of global security in the actual supply chain process take on greater and greater importance. Here in the United States, we have what's called the CT-PAT program, the Customs Trade Partnership Against Terrorism. Around the world, in Europe, we have the Authorized Economic Operator Program, or the AEO program, which has transcended beyond Europe to Central and South America. We also have the BASC program down in Central and South America, Partners in Protection program in Canada. And all of these are global security initiative programs that are promoting two core principles: to raise the level of global security awareness and effectiveness within the supply chain. And it's because most companies who are dealing in international trade traditionally have fallen upon Incoterms to kind of decide whether or not they get involved at what point in that supply chain. For example, if they were in the past operating under what's called FOB terms, most buyers would not get involved in the global security aspect from the point of origin until those goods were laden on board the vessel. Well, that's all changed because of the events of 9/11 and this now growing concern about terrorist activity in the supply chain. But whether or not you're part of any of those global programs, in order to do business internationally, the expectation is for those companies who do trade, who do sell to, who purchase from foreign origins, for them to elevate the level of their own security in order to protect the interests of goods coming in to the United States and being shipped globally. So it's not just a US initiative, it's now a global footprint, foreign to foreign, inclusive of the same principles.
Okay, so it's top of mind, or it should be. But have government authorities linked international trade compliance with global security management? Have they made that connection?
Yes, they have, finally. And it was a subtle change because most of the programs that I just mentioned are all voluntary programs. There is no requirement for you to join the CT-PAT program. It's a voluntary effort for you to join to raise the level of your security and awareness. However, there have been compliance programs put into place which are built on the core principles of managing your global security process. For example, here in the United States, we have what's called the Importer Security Filing Program, or the ISF program. And the ISF program, again, has punitive damages of $5,000 per container for failure to provide adequate information timely to customs 24 hours before the loading of a container onto a vessel. Well, that marriage of compliance and security was made by government officials. And as we start to see more and more proactive efforts from the air community, the TSA has now put in place mandatory screening for goods going on passenger aircrafts. That's a combination of security and compliance in order to adhere to existing rules and regulations.
But even the voluntary programs aren't really voluntary if you want to survive and thrive in this environment and not be subject to extensive fines, liabilities, and everything like that, right?
Absolutely. Though you may not be subject to a particular fine or a penalty for not joining a program, you're absolutely right. The marriage of compliance and security makes for a better operational process in your supply chain profile. And the key here is, why would you want any of your competitors to go down this path and incorporate security into their supply chain and then have a more effective supply chain process, again, surpassing your ability to get goods into and from the United States?
And even so, we hear talk about something like CT-PAT perhaps someday becoming a mandatory program, so why not start now?
You know, there are some who argue, is it really mandatory now simply because of the pressure being put by different trading partners? But I think the success that the Department of Homeland Security has had by keeping it a voluntary program, when the program started back in 2002, when it rolled out in January of 2002, they had 750 members. Today, going into 2014, we have over 12,000, representing a very, over the majority of all the cargo that comes into the United States is being imported by a CTPAT participant. So clearly, Customs feels that the CTPAT program is a success. However, we haven't encompassed all of the import and export participants in the process, so we'd like to get them involved as well.
Yeah. So what about the private sector? Has best practices and world-class standards as practiced by companies today, have they managed to incorporate and bring together these two concepts, international trade compliance and global security?
Yes. Around the globe, we have compliance standards that are in place, standard operating procedures. We have global protocols that are put in place under corporate policies that address compliance issues, that address certain things such as knowing who your business partner is, not from the aspect of just global security, but now knowing who they are to understand the financial risk that they may pose due to their current financial status in their own markets. Well, now it complements one another because global security requires you to go out and vet your business partners, requires you to know not only their hiring practices, but to understand how their physical access controls are being managed and how well that they manage their background checks, how well they manage their visitor access controls, and that complements your goods before they're even put into a container.
Well, the phrase business partners is a little bit of a loaded phrase, is it not? Because then you're talking about multiple tiers of suppliers and partners that could end up being quite distant from an OEM or a distributor or a retailer, and yet it has to flow all the way upstream, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. There's a connectivity within the international supply chain process that doesn't stop at tier one. So if my expectation from my tier one suppliers is that they impart the same security principles in their selection process, then I'm already affecting the tier two level. So the expectation is, again, to go over and above. Don't just stop at the minimum security requirements of what CTPAT put out in March of 2005. Here we are moving into 2014. We need to create best practices and enhance practices, surpass existing best practices that we may have done last year, continue to implement internal assessments on our own security profiles, again, to create a more efficient process day to day.
So do you see global security programs as gaining steam right now, or are they perhaps losing support in some quarters?
Oh no, I see them gaining steam. I see the global security programs on the rise globally. Again, the footprint of international trade participants are increasing in their efforts of not only sharing the benefits of what we call mutual recognition around the globe through CTPAT and the AEO program. I see our partners in Mexico who have incorporated, in addition to the CTPAT program, which is called the NEEC program. So I see global security not only on the horizon, but a real tangible inclusion to security profiles all over the globe.
Really is the price of admission these days, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
It is the price of admission. It's not again, back to that idea, is it voluntary, is it not voluntary?
Absolutely.
If you want to survive in the world of international trade, you have to be on top of this.
Absolutely, and you have to protect the integrity of your cargo. If I'm an importer selling my product to Walmart, I have to ensure Walmart as their business partner that I am bringing goods in that is not going to be tainted or affected with the global security threat of terror.
So let's say you are crafting a new supply chain program. How would you prioritize international trade compliance and global security?
Because I hold compliance and security in such a high regard, they would be at the forefront of my platform in building that supply chain process. Since we're talking about from the point of initial purchase, and when goods first have my name on a purchase order, I would incorporate compliance and security at that same point in time. Those standard operating procedures, again, that demonstrate compliance controls help complement my security controls. So I would intertwine them into one particular unit and have them demonstrate my compliance and security throughout my entire import supply chain process.
Well, there's so much more to talk about in terms of how you would actually execute that, but Rennie, thank you so much for helping to give us some of the details and understand the marriage now of international trade compliance and global security. Thank you very much.
Bob, thanks for having me.
I've been speaking to Rennie Alston of American River International. Thank you very much for watching.